You are listening to the Martial Arts Lifestyle Podcast, where each week we have a conversation with everyday martial arts practitioners. From the first motivation to train, martial arts enriches our lives and becomes a lifestyle. Welcome to the individual stories of those martial artists living that lifestyle. You are listening to the abbreviated version. For those of you checking this out on YouTube, please hit the like and subscribe buttons. Full-length versions of this podcast can be subscribed to at our Patreon page, is www.patreon.com/malmag. Or individual full-length episodes can be purchased at our Gumroad page at malmag.gumroad.com. Before we begin this week's program, I would like to remind you to check out martialartslifestylemagazine.com to see articles on the martial arts. Click on the store tab to find products for the practice of Southeast Asian martial arts, featuring Timmy B's brand sticks. Check out the courses tab, currently featuring a course on the Dos Manos method of the Filipino martial arts. Also check out our Places to Train page, featuring top quality martial art academies from around the world. And of course, check out our events page for seminars and events coming up around the world. To see your school listed in our Places to Train page or your event on our events calendar, contact us at malmagonline@gmail.com. This week I get on Zoom and I connect to New Jersey and I talk with martial artist Dan Pagan. We talk about how he got involved in martial arts, his adventures in the JKD world, taking up the art of Jiu Jitsu, running a school, and taking up that other Brazilian martial art, lute livre, and much more. Sit back and enjoy. Welcome to the Martial Arts Lifestyle Podcast, and today I am back to the East Coast, and I'm hooking up with New Jersey. I've had a little bit of run of talking with people in New York. Now we're going to go across the river, right? Is it across the river?
Yeah, across
New Jersey a little bit, and we're going to talk with a very interesting person I've met via social media, and this will be my first time actually talking with him live, but we've exchanged a lot, so there's a lot in common. This is Dan Pagan, or Pagan, as his Brazilian professors call it.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Tim. Glad to be here. This is great.
Yeah, this could be good time. Well, first of all, I want to congratulate you because I know recently you achieved a black belt in Brazilian Jiu Jitsu, right?
Actually, no, first degree, which is a stripe.
Oh, right.
Yeah,
Okay.
So yeah,
that's still an accomplishment. So I'm you got an award recently. I want to say congratulations.
Sure. Well, let me explain too, just for the listeners, if they're not familiar, what Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu does a little differently with our black belts versus other black belts is, say in Taekwondo, I'm also second Dan Taekwondo. However, when you earn your black belt in most martial arts, you get the black belt and right away your first degree.
There's a stripe, right? Yeah.
Right. You get there's that's right. Yeah. Sometimes they put a stripe. Right. Some people wait till they're second. It's a little weird. It's kind of strange, but yeah, there's already considered a first degree, and you have a stripe. Some people usually put like a gold bar or whatever. I remember in my Taekwondo we didn't do any of that. We just had degrees, and you just had black belts.
Right. Yeah.
I think, and only really, the owners they had stripes. So they had the fancy uniforms.
Right.
Everyone else. I trained way back in the '80s, so we just had tattered gis and tattered belts.
That's right, dude. I was a karate guy back then, and it's like, we had Dan, right? So Dan is your black belt degrees. Q, your lower than black belt degrees, and guys might have second and third Dan. But there was not any stripes on the belt at all. You just kind of knew that guy's belt looks a lot more worn and faded than that guy. So you could kind of figure that guy was probably a little higher.
Yeah, the owners, they had the fancy, so they had stripes and the cool, they had names on the belt, all that stuff. Right. Gotcha. But Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, when you earn the black belt, it's just called black belt. Right. And then in 3 years, which is the minimum time requirement, you get your first stripe, and then that's first degree. So that was for me. That was the third year anniversary of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt.
Wow.
31 years total training Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu with a lot of time off.
Yeah, but we've all got that, and that's
of course.
That's kind of what it's about. We inspire each other through our own stories. Some people. And I understand it. Sometimes you think you're the only one that has to take time off, or you think that injury, whatever. When you can hear, my show, and you hear at this point 100 and some odd people kind of say the same thing, you're like, oh shit, I'm not alone.
This is
Right, right.
so I don't feel so bad.
Going off that, let's just take that for example. Time in martial arts, time in training. We met, through a lot of those JKD groups, and I love those groups. But you hear the guys coming out, I've been training for 40 years, 30 years, they're throwing out these crazy numbers, and basing it on like when they bought their first Bruce Lee book. When they bought the Tao.
I don't know
I've
who
been
you're
training
talking
ever
about.
since.
I have no idea who you're talking about.
Well, hey, according to me, I've been training since fifth grade. That's the story I'm going with.
Yeah, well, let's see. I saw the Kung Fu series somewhere around age 4 because I remember my first lunch pail when I went to school.
Nice.
I take lunch, which was first grade. I had a Kung Fu lunch pail, so I guess that's when I started.
Nice. Hey, it's a shame that the new generations, they're not going to really go through any of that. They don't have that. It's a little different.
They don't have Kung Fu or a lunch pail.
Yeah. Yeah, we could go back with all the relics and the movies and the classics. I try to get my kids into Bruce Lee, and they think he's really cool, but then they look at compare it to other stuff like Matrix and Jackie Chan, and it's completely choreographed, light years ahead. And John Wick is huge for my kids.
The way they shoot it, now too. I mean, because the God, you think of it's like literally. I went to film school, and so it's the idea of showing someone Citizen Kane, and they go, "Well, what's the big deal of that?" You go, "Okay, I get it. You don't understand. See how that looks like a modern movie? Yeah. Well, they didn't look like that before because the cameras were so big, and they even were in that particular film. It's just that Wells got smart. He like dug an opera pit around where he could move these cameras around and get these shots that you just couldn't get. And yeah, it looks like a modern day film. But that's the first one that looked like that. That's why that was groundbreaking. But if you're used to seeing that already, you go, well, what the hell? So,
Right.
Yeah. And so now it's like, they can have cameras that are smaller and more mobile. They've got them on steady cam rigs. So they can film and do things now with fight scenes that make it extremely exciting in the way that it's photographed that even Bruce Lee couldn't do. But also just shows his physicality in that, yeah, you're not doing a lot of camera dazzling. He's just fucking dazzling you with his physicality. So that's
right. Speaking of modern martial arts and cinema compared to Bruce Lee back then, what we grew up with, I think today, I have to give credit to of all people, Keanu Reeves and John Wick. The guy, there is. It's funny. We have proof he does train. We have him on video. The guy does train. In different martial arts. He seems to get it, and he's got really good choreographers. So I guess I would have to say, if we were going to make a comparison, he would, in my opinion, be the closest to Bruce Lee that we have of today. He's a guy. He's exploring different martial arts. He's pushing himself. His own limits. A lot of similarities, I think, to Bruce.
Yeah, and I mean, in putting that excitement on film to find that, and that's really cool. Dan, let's go back to your origin story. So, how did you get involved in?
I'm sorry, you just dipped out. How did I get involved in the martial arts?
Yeah. Well, what's the where, when, why, and how?
Let me give a quick breakdown, and then I'll try not to give too many stories.
No, we like the stories. That's what this is about.
All right, cool. So basically, I was introduced around in fifth grade, and that was during the height of the ninja craze. Enter the Ninja, Shokasugi, all that. Right. Yeah, so I was into ninjutsu. I was into ninjas. I swore I was a ninja. And I was fortunate enough to have a martial arts supply store in my neighborhood in Astoria, Queens, New York, right in the middle of the city there. And it was kind of like a Chinese store. They sold like trinkets and gift stuff, and in the back they had all these ninja weapons and books, and they had all the Bruce's books, everyone's books. So, but my primary interest was ninjutsu, and I was doing the thing. I was buying books. I was throwing stars with my friends, and the older group of us, they were into Bruce Lee, and they had Bruce's books, and they had Bruce Lee's fighting method 1 through 4, and the Tao, to be specific. Those
Uh-huh.
5 books, and those were their Bibles. And there was a little competition, and I was like, I'm really hesitant. I was a kid. I wanted ninjutsu. Anyway, 6th grade comes along. Now I became the big kid. I got into the books, and that was it. I was all into Bruce Lee, ninjutsu. I forgot all about ninjas, and yeah, and then I started watching the movies. And I think I had a few of them on Betamax. Going back, it was Betamax, then VHS.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's how old I go back. I started Taekwondo after that around 14 years old, and didn't take it too serious. Then around junior year in high school, transitioning into senior year, I started teaching. And at the time, I thought I was here. I was like, "Oh, this is great! I'm going to teach. I'm going to learn." And I was, the masters were all, "Dan, this is your opportunity now." So I started teaching. Basically, I was just free labor.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I didn't care. I wasn't getting paid anything. They did buy me sandwiches and stuff like that. But that's what got me started teaching kids classes in Taekwondo. Then I earned my black belt in Taekwondo at 17 years old. And this is where it gets cool. I then joined the New York City Guardian Angels.
Wow.
Yeah. And I figured, I wanted to do something.
This was in the 80s?
Yeah, right, mid 80s.
Wow.
And
Okay.
yeah,
So rough and tumble town at that point.
yeah, it was live. Times Square. Times Square still had the kung fu movies. They had the porn movies. They had everything. Yeah, it was great.
Oh.
And so the story was I was on a train once, and I was gonna be late. I was just about to. The doors were closing. All of a sudden, boom! This big guy with a red beret grabs the doors like the Hulk and rips them open. He goes, "Come on, get in quick!" And I was like, "Oh man, cool!" And I jump in, and I'm like, "Oh man, thanks." And he hands me the flyer. He joined the Guardian. I was like, and and he just walks away, and I get the flyer, and maybe a week later, I go in, and I join, and that was it. Yeah, so I started uh, patrolling the streets of Manhattan. We did a lot of things. We took down drug dealers, pimps, uh,
Wow.
crackheads, all that kind of stuff. The thing was, we were a bunch of kids who were 17 years old. A couple of us had some martial arts training. Uh, Not really much. So we got ourselves into a couple pickles sometimes. But
Yeah.
that was where I really started seeing and that there was a lot more to this, and that the Taekwondo thing, uh, I needed more. But I didn't know what it was.
Right.
So
Well, that could be a little. I
yes,
mean, because the Guardian Angels, they weren't armed, right? That was the whole idea. They were unarmed guys,
right.
and drug dealers, I'm pretty sure, aren't abiding by that rule.
No. Well, here's a quick story. Then going back to weapons, I wasn't involved in this situation, but I was on one patrol. We got a call over the radio. We literally had walkie talkies,
Yeah.
pretty good ones. I don't know how they had them set up. That someone got stabbed in another
Ooh.
patrol. Yeah, at a bar in Times Square. So we all rushed down. At that point, he's taken away, and we're all lined up. And there's a bunch of I don't know, degenerates in the bar. We're at Hell's Kitchen, New York, and there's a couple
Yeah.
cops there. Yeah, a couple, not many cops, and we're all charged up. We wanted to rush this bar. We were a bunch of headstrong, dumb kids. Our friend got stabbed. We were ready we were out for blood, man. And the cops were like, get out of here, just go, and they tell us come back when we're not here. And this is back when
Oh, wow.
they just didn't want to deal with it. They were like, listen,
Right.
we get it, but they were like,
What's
listen,
paperwork?
yeah, they're like, come back tomorrow. Yeah, we won't be here, but don't whatever you're gonna do, don't do it now. So luckily we didn't do anything, but it was serious out there. I had somebody pull a knife on our patrol, but they were like 30 feet away, and they
Yeah.
took off. So that was about as close as I got to it, thankfully. I did get into a couple good scraps. You know, I did take down a few people. Only thing, looking back on it, I didn't know grappling at the time. And it was terrible the way we used to hold him down and not knowing what the hell we were doing. And now, you know, knowing jujitsu, knowing about these things, I look back and I wish to myself, man, if we just had a fraction of it, just even like the basic Gracie tapes, we'd have been
Right.
light years ahead of the game.
Exactly. Like even some pretty good wrestling and some basic judo would have been like really handy at the time, because man, you're talking about, most people in the 80s weren't all that educated about martial arts to begin with. I mean, I ended fights with a damn sidekick back then. I'm not
Those are great days.
Right? But let
I
alone
love it.
like a judo throw or a choke or something, that would totally have worked pretty well back then. But now, there's more sophistication. But yeah, it's interesting because the only guys that were really doing that at that time were people that were doing judo. And then, a wrestler was considered something different. Like, a martial art guy didn't really look at wrestling and like, oh, that's something different.
It's funny. Yeah, now we look at it as one of the great martial art.
Hell yeah.
But yeah, how the perceptions changed. So anyway, so after Guardian Angels, I turned 19 years old, and this gets more crazier. My father owns a little restaurant in a town, Boonton, New Jersey. He sees I'm doing the Guardian Angel thing, and he was really into martial arts. So he makes an offer. He goes, Dan, you got to do what you love. He goes, let's open a school. Just like real simple. So I was like, sure, whatever. I was only 19 years old. I would say yes to anything. At that point, yeah, I had just gotten my second degree in Taekwondo, and we opened a Taekwondo school. And from the start, I wanted to do Taekwondo. I knew from the Guardian Angels experience and just living in the city, I wanted to have a self-defense aspect to the school, and without realizing that I had no idea what self-defense even meant. Yeah, and even to this day, it's still a touchy subject. What is self-defense?
That's true.
So I opened the school.
Ask 20 martial artists, and you're going to get 20
exactly.
Answers.
Exactly. So we opened the school, and at this point, I've got a good couple years of training JKD under with a couple friends of mine. My one buddy, he was a New York City now police officer, captain now. But back then he was training New York Martial Arts Academy, Santo lineage, and I was training with him. I was studying with a couple other people, and one. So when I came to open the school, I opened it up. The name was the Dragon Institute of Combative Martial Arts, as a little honor to Bruce there. So we named it the Dragon Institute.
Well, it sounds good.
I mean, it sounded great.
It's got dragons and it's got combat and it's an institute.
Yeah. I wish I could show you the logo. Maybe I'll send it to you. You could post it, but it was a picture of a dragon. We had the two arrows going around it, and
Nice.
basically, I was 19 years old. I had a black belt and I had a school, and we were teaching what I called combative Taekwondo, and which was basically kind of like a bare knuckle karate type thing. We sparred with no gear. Of course we didn't punch to the head, but we punch kicked to the ribs. That whole thing. A couple of head kicks here and there. And we did a lot of self defense against holds. Grab my gi, grab my wrist, that kind of stuff. We were still learning. Then UFC came out, and that was right around that time. The world changed.
There were two revolutionary things that happened there: UFC, and then the fight between Rick Rufus and the Thai. Like two major revolutions overnight. Boom.
Yeah. Oh man, I remember that time. And so the UFC came out. I heard about it. Didn't see it until UFC number 2. Then we got our hands on a copy from Blockbuster Video.
Right.
And I saw that and I was like, I have to learn this. I was like that. I have to learn this Gracie Jiu Jitsu. And but there was no one around. Henzo was just getting started in Manhattan at the time, but there was no one around. So I went with my buddy and my dad. We got our money together. We bought some videotapes. We paid hundreds and hundreds of dollars.
Yes. You remember back in the day when it's like it was, I'll bet you if you put the cost of the videotapes we all bought back in the day into modern money, we dropped some frickin' bank on this stuff.
Oh yeah, for some basic material too, by today's standards.
Exactly.
So,
but it was just a thing that you could watch it, so you could watch it over and over and over and over again, and to get the details. Yeah.
So that's where we got most of our material from, and
it's so much better than magazines. You're like, oh Jesus, how'd they get from picture 2 to picture 3?
Oh yeah. Well, to be honest, I did learn a lot from magazines because there wasn't much else back then.
That's right. Yeah. I mean, we
did get a lot from magazines. So we started introducing these into our self-defense curriculum in the Taekwondo classes, and they were popular and they took off. Then I started training with a gentleman. His name was David James, under Professor V in the style V Arnis Jitsu.
Oh yeah, okay.
Yes, and we started training at the dojo. And when I say we, me and my students, we all trained. We were buddies. We hung out. We did everything. We were a bunch of guys. We fought. We trained, and we went to other schools. And we used to go to his place on Park Place, V Arnis Jitsu, and we were introduced to the Filipino martial arts. And their style of Filipino martial arts is much different than what we see in the JKD community and the Inosanto lineage. It's very basic. It mostly is based on most of it up to the 5 angles, even though they do have a 12. So the V Arnis Jitsu system was my first introduction to Filipino martial arts. I then brought that into the training at the Taekwondo school.
Cool.
Yeah. So then at that point, being young and headstrong, I thought to myself, hey, we're no longer doing Taekwondo here. And I didn't know what we were doing. We were doing all kind of stuff. And I wanted to say we were doing kind of JKD, but we really weren't. And even though I took a lot of material from a lot of videotapes, a lot of series, I can't even remember all the different, but I had Inosanto, I had Remy Presses, I had everyone. I had I wanted to get into JKD. I wanted to join the community, but there was no one around at the time live. So
And this concludes the abbreviated version of the podcast. Please consider supporting the program by going to www.patreon.com/malmag and subscribing to the show. You can also purchase this individual episode or any individual episode at our Gumroad page. That's malmag.gumroad.com. Thank you for listening to this episode with Dan Pagan. Coming up next week, I connect again to Texas and we talk with martial artist John Rister. Our Malmag online store at martialartslifestylemagazine.com has a full selection of Timmy B's brand sticks for FMA and Krabiker Bong. Timmy B's brand now selling in Japan as well. Beautiful Timmy B's brand shirts and Dos Manos shirts are available. We also have sarongs, malongs, and wooden training knives. An online course in the Dos Manos method for FMA is available under the Courses tab. More courses coming soon. Check out the Places to Train tab to find schools near you, and click on the Events Calendar page to see what seminars and events are happening all around the world. And of course, visit our main page for articles on the martial arts. Music by Arthur J. Martial Arts Lifestyle Magazine and the Martial Arts Lifestyle Podcast are trademarked and copyrighted by TNT LLC.